Okay, boys and girls, it's math time. We are in chapter 12 on lesson 4. Now, our first 3 chapters were spent talking about two-dimensional shapes: the circle, the square, the rectangle, the quadrilateral, which includes the square and the rectangle. And do you remember what else? There were 2 other shapes that we learned that were quadrilaterals: the square, the rectangle, the trapezoid, and the parallelogram. And I believe we also talked about, I don't know if we talked about a rhombus. I may have mentioned it in one of the slideshows. Anyway, now we're moving on to three-dimensional shapes. These are the ones that we can pick up and hold. These are the things that look like things we have around our house. We're going to be talking a lot about these, especially in the next lesson. There's a very important lesson coming up tomorrow. So if you're not comfortable with your shapes, go back and watch the other videos that I've posted. Okay? And of course, pay attention to this, which hopefully will be a review. So we're looking at page 759. Okay, and our essential question still is, how do I use shapes and equal parts? This will be very important. The deeper we go into this, you saw in one of the slideshows how I was able to use triangles to build a parallelogram, to build a trapezoid, to build a hexagon. Do you remember that? That pink and yellow slide? So smaller shapes can be used to make big ones. And looking at this picture of a bedroom, oh, that telescope is a shape. And we're going to be learning about it today. I see a toy box. I see something on the wall. I see a basketball and a baseball, something on the bedside table. Okay, there are shapes in all of these things. So if you want to pause, let's see what you can find, and look for three-dimensional shapes that you see. I see quite a few of them. You can pause here if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just circle some. This toy box, which looks like a rectangle on one side, but this is a three-dimensional shape, so we might call this a rectangular prism or a cuboid. Okay, the basketball is not a circle, it's a sphere. Same with the baseball. Let's look at the telescope. Well, there's a circle there, and there's a circle on the other end, and they're connected. What appears to be a tube. We call this a cylinder. And if you look on the bedside table, well, it looks like something that's got a triangle on each face, but it's three-dimensional. We would call that a pyramid. Okay, I see another cuboid or rectangular prism there. That looks like it might be a board game. So there are quite a few shapes here, and I can see a couple of more. Okay, let's move on. So a three-dimensional shape is a shape with length, width, and height. These are the 3 dimensions. These are the 3 things that we can measure. We can measure how long one of these shapes is, how wide it is, and how high it is. We could not do that with the shapes that we saw in lessons 1 through 3. Okay, so these are a little bit more complicated. Now, look at them and get to know them because we're going to be dealing with them a lot. And I'm looking at the middle of the page now, and try and read along with me. Write the name of the shape. Circle the objects that are the same shape. So if you look at number 1, what shape is that? And even though you probably see a rectangle right there, this is not a rectangle. Pause here and try and do numbers 1 and 2. Okay, so hopefully for number 1, you said rectangular prism. Okay, so yes, I do want you to write it on the line. And look at the objects to the right. It looks like a box of tissues, a spray can, and maybe a box of cereal. What there is a rectangular prism? Hopefully, you said the box of tissues and the box of cereal. For number 2, what shape is that? Hopefully, you said it was a cone. You would write that right there. Okay, and we've got 3 objects to the right, and this one is a cone, and so is the birthday hat. Okay, the ice cream cone and the birthday hat. Okay, these shapes are everywhere. Now at the bottom, it says talk math. Name 2 objects, it says in your classroom. Look around the room that you're in now. Name 2 objects in your home that are the same shape as a rectangular prism, and you should be able to find many of them. I'm sure you could probably find 20 if you looked around. Okay, when you're ready, let's move on. Okay, so for numbers 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, write down the name of the shape. You'd have to go back to the previous page if you need to know how to spell it, and it does have to be spelled correctly. And then circle the objects on the right. I'll pause here while you do that. Okay, so let's see what you have. For number 3, hopefully you put sphere. Okay, it looks like a circle, but it's 3-dimensional. It's a sphere. And the object that looks like a sphere is this ball of yarn. It's not a perfect sphere, but it's pretty close. What shape is that in number 4? Right, it's a rectangular prism. And for now, this is the one that's the rectangular prism. We're not going to circle the block. The block is a cube, which is a special type of shape. Number 5, what shape is that? And I know it's a little confusing, but that dotted line is actually the backside. Hopefully you put down that it was a pyramid, and the pyramid is this one right here. Number 6, hopefully you wrote down that it was a cube, and this time I think we can probably say this is a cube, and this is, it's pretty close. And even though it's not perfect, this is pretty close to a cube also. We'd have to measure it, and these pictures are a little small, but I think we're pretty safe if we can say that these are all cubes. And number 7 is a cone. Now, one of the key things to remember about a cone is one side has a circle, that's the bottom here. The other side has a point, and it must be a point. So, the birthday hat and the ice cream cone, not the cup. The cup is almost a cone. If it went down a little further, it would have been a cone, but here it isn't one. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now it gets a little harder, right? Because we have our word problems here. Jen is wrapping a present that is in a box. The box is square on all sides. What shape is the box Jen is wrapping? So if we look at that present there, imagine all of those sides are squares and they're all the same size. Number 9. I am a three-dimensional shape. I have a circle at the bottom. I have a point at the top. What shape am I? All right, let's think about these before we go on to the brain builders. Hopefully, for number 8, you said cube. Okay? Remember, a cube is basically 6 squares that are put together like a box. And for number 9, I have a circle at the bottom. This is very difficult to draw with a mouse, by the way. And I have a point at the top. And we know that this is a cone. Okay, now let's look at number 10. Brain builder alert, be careful. If you stack 2 cubes together, what three-dimensional shape will you make? Oh, all right. Now, you might have to pause it and think about it, or maybe you got it right away. If you could take this shape right here and stack it on top of this one, what would you make? Do you have it? Well, hopefully you do, and you have a rectangular prism. Okay. Stacking 2 cubes would help you make a rectangular prism. And again, it's a little difficult to draw this with a mouse. All right, and then right math. How can you tell if a shape is three-dimensional? Tell somebody who's around you. How do you know that you're looking at a three-dimensional shape? Okay? And share that with somebody at home. All right, so your homework is to complete pages 763 and 764. Hopefully this one won't be too difficult. It's really important that you learn the names of these shapes. We can't get them confused. And tomorrow we're going to be adding a little bit more vocabulary. So we have to have these learned. Go back and watch the videos if you need to, and have a wonderful day. The end.